Good morning, Leader.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Councillor Martin Hill, Leader of the County Council and Chairman of this executive meeting on the 3rd of November. Welcome, everybody, and I think the first thing we'll move into is apologies, please. Cheryl.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just going to do a quick roll call just to confirm who's present. If members could just confirm that they're present when their name is called. Councillor Mrs Bradwell.
Present.
Councillor Davey.
Present.
Councillor Davis.
Present.
Councillor Poll.
Present.
Councillor Mrs Woolley.
Present.
Councillor Worth.
Present.
Councillor Young.
Present.
Councillor Rob Parker, Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board. I can see Councillor Parker's on the screen, but it's just muted. Councillor Nigel Pepper, Chairman of the Public Protection and Community Scrutiny Committee.
Present.
Thank you. And the following officers are also in attendance. Debbie Barnes, Chief Executive, Les Britzman, Chief Fire Officer, Ros Cordy, Interim Assistant Director for Adult Frailty and Long-Term Conditions, Andrew Crookham, Executive Director for Resources, Andy Gutherson, Executive Director for Place, Heather Sandy, Executive Director for Children's Services, Nigel West, Head of Democratic Services, and myself, Cheryl Evans, Democratic Services Officer. I've received apologies for absence, Chairman, from James Drury, Executive Director for Commercial, and Ros Cordy is attending on behalf of Glenn Garrett for this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We'll move on then to item 2, which is any declarations of interest from a councillor. So I'll pause for a moment. Has anybody got any interest to declare?
No.
On the basis of that, then we'll thank you. There are no interests to declare then. They'll then move on to item 3, which is announcements by any member of the executive. I would just like to say in terms of myself, obviously we now know that we are about to enter another COVID lockdown on Thursday. As we were also aware that the rates of coronavirus in Lincolnshire are still lower than the national average, although Lincoln was at the national average, the rest of the county was substantially lower. And there was, as you're probably aware, a discussion about whether we were going to move up tiers or not. Obviously, that has now become academic for the moment anyway, and we are still working through the details of the government's announcements. But basically, in terms of what they seem to be saying is that they would hope that most services and buildings would stay open, but there will be some exceptions, of course, in terms of registration and those sort of things. But things like household recycling centres, they will remain open, and various others. So we're going to try and, as a council, try and keep our services going as much as possible, apart from those which we can't. Museums and galleries will close, but we'll also be keeping the castle open area open for the public. So in Lincoln, so at least they, in this further time, they can at least have somewhere a green open space in addition to the other ones already in the city. Ourselves and district councils have been given another tranche of money to support people, vulnerable people and businesses. And again, we're looking through the detail of that. In the main, the business grants will go to the district councils in Lincolnshire for them to give to businesses according to what their circumstances are and what sort of business they are. And again, I think we are looking through the detail of that to see if there is a good enough coverage to businesses, and if there are any gaps, obviously we'll be talking to district council colleagues as to how other businesses may be helped. But at this stage, till we've seen the details of the government scheme in full, it's a bit difficult to predict. So hopefully, and the government seems to have made it clear also that this will be for a month, and then we'll revert back to the tier system. That's the current advice anyway. And again, that would probably mean that we will revert back to a tier 1 situation. And I do understand in Lincoln rates were beginning to drop a bit. It seemed to suggest that at the moment anyway. But so we're back into tier 1 hopefully in a month's time. But in the meantime, we will be doing all we can to support everybody to get through this second period. So that's my announcement. Has anybody else got any announcements they wish to make from their portfolio holder area? As usual, if you could show with your hand or in the chat if you want to speak or do anything, please let me know. Cheryl, is there anybody else there that wants to do anything?
Councillor Paul.
Councillor Paul, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Just to sort of elaborate on your remarks about the household waste recycling centres, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the contractors and their staff for being prepared to take this on and keep the centres open. And I think that's a measure of the relationship we have with them. But I would encourage the public to consider wearing personal protective equipment and face masks on site, even though they're not compulsory outdoors. It makes everybody feel safer, and you have a pleasant and stress-free visit to the waste recycling centre if you need to go.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. That's good. So it's one of those services which I do know we want to keep open, and as you said, it's hopefully people will respect the rules and keep everybody safe. Are there any further, Cheryl, any indications wishing to speak?
No, Leader.
Thank you very much. In that case, then I'll move on to item 4, which is the minutes of the meeting of this executive, which was held on the 6th of October. I propose that this is a true and accurate record of the meeting. Is anybody in disagreement with that statement? If so, would they please indicate now? Cheryl, there are no indications of disagreement, so I'll take it as unanimously supported. These are a true and accurate record. Okay, thank you. I'll move on then to item 5, which is the future of heritage services in Lincolnshire. And when we say Lincolnshire, I think we mean Greater Lincolnshire. And I'm going to ask Councillor Worth in a moment to introduce this paper, but I think in terms of the future and upgrading and building on the fantastic work and success of Lincoln Castle in particular, that I think there is a feeling that across the whole of Greater Lincolnshire, working with our partners in North and North East Lincolnshire, there's an opportunity here to actually create a vision and an offer which will hopefully then attract national and other investment as well. So I know Councillor Worth has been doing a lot of work on this, trying to work out that vision, and we will hopefully work forward for when in a few years' time there is more national money available, because at the moment I think there's nothing really available until 2023. So that does give us some time to create this vision, do some work together to look at for the future and also improve what we've got across the whole of Greater Lincolnshire. So I'll hand it over to you now, Councillor Worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Well, this report sets out our plan for the future of heritage services in the county to make it more accessible to all. Our heritage is of national and international importance, and we want everyone to have the chance to see and explore the great things about Greater Lincolnshire. So we're setting out a 6-point plan for the future, so you can be confident that we're thinking long term on how we can deliver our offering in the best way possible, and so that everyone can continue to make great memories and enjoy our amazing county. So firstly, we want to have a strong voice at a national level. We'll work together as Greater Lincolnshire to have a strong and unified voice to ensure we are heard at that national level. We want to influence decisions, bring funding and investment, work with national and international cultural institutions, and make sure we have the best access to the best blockbuster exhibitions and events. Secondly, we want to embrace Lincolnshire as a whole, making heritage and art available to all. We're such a vast and varied county with so many things to be proud of, and many of these having played a key role in British and world history. This means we have some inspirational artefacts, architecturally brilliant buildings, and a wonderful natural environment, which we hope to make available for everyone to enjoy now and in the future. Thirdly, we want to tell the story of the whole county. we know we need to be creative. Together with our partners, sponsors and private institutions, we will create a strong identity with a narrative to tell the story of our exciting county, bringing together our culture and history in a unique way, making more opportunities and reasons for you and your families to visit and explore attractions across the whole of Greater Lincolnshire. Fourthly, we want to get the investment our county deserves. We will work differently with our current partners and collaborate with the new ones across Greater Lincolnshire to create a powerful and attractive offer. We believe a truly unified cultural offering is the best way forward for us to make the best case for external funding, which is urgently needed and overdue. Further heritage investment will provide a real boost to the economy, tourism, and will make a significant difference to attracting new businesses and visitors coming to the county, benefiting everyone. We want to make Greater Lincolnshire an even greater place to live, work, visit and study. Fifthly, we want making memories county-wide. We want to create centres of excellence, which will bring together our museums, art collections, archives and aviation heritage in a number of well-placed sites across the county, allowing everyone to see more of the county's rich treasures on display. And finally, we want to have great art and culture. We will continue to bring nationally recognised and world-renowned art and cultural exhibitions and installations to our attractions across the whole of Greater Lincolnshire, which will allow you and everyone involved to have access to some of the most amazing experiences to make new and long-lasting memories. Thank you, Leader. Myself or will be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Nick. Any questions or comments, please? Please indicate if you have comments. I mean, just in terms of I've got Councillor Bradwell, thank you.
Yes, just to say, Mr. Chairman, this is an exciting project, I think, because I think many people who live in the rural areas of Lincolnshire often think, our museums and we've got the collection and obviously lots of things that are often centred in and around Lincoln. And I think to have this offer that takes things out into the other areas of the county and we can, move things around, I think that's an exciting project, and it will mean that more people are actually able to see whether they're visiting collections or collections that we've got in the county already. So I think this is a great opportunity, and I see the benefits of actually including Greater Lincolnshire. Obviously, we've got the coastal cycleway going up into Greater Lincolnshire now as well. So I just think this is, a great step, and look forward to hearing all about it in the future.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Davey and I think Councillor Davies, Thank you. Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I too warmly welcome the paper. I think it is a great opportunity to shape our place in the right way and send the right messages. As you know, I am chairing the Tourism Commission for the LEP, and I see this dovetailing nicely into the work that we're doing on that commission as we send that message out about Greater Lincolnshire and Rutland. Having a great heritage and cultural offer is vitally important to attract visitors and those who wish to live in Lincolnshire and work here in the future. So I really do welcome the paper and congratulate Nick on the work he's done to get us to this point. Thank you, Chairman.
Absolutely. Councillor Davies.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, just to echo some of the comments from colleagues, it is an exciting opportunity. I think my question is, having been involved, and this is slightly parochial, so forgive me, but involved with Grantham Museum in the past, one of the problems we experienced when interacting with the LCC service, not for the want of goodwill on all sides, was the issues around things like accreditation. And I just wonder, the idea of getting stuff out of the archives, out of the collection, out and around, will we be in a position to be quite flexible with local organisations that they don't need Arts Council full accreditation and gloves and all this type of stuff routinely when they're borrowing things? Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll start by answering, and Will, I'm sure, will come in as well. Yeah, I mean, the idea of this is to make sure that we get a lot of those collections that we've currently got in, say, in Lincoln, to out to places like Grantham and Stamford, particularly. So actually, you know, there's no point holding those collections in Lincoln when actually you could see them in your own areas. So we've got to try and make that as simple as possible. I will let Will just come in with the kind of technical side of that one.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely, Councillor Davies. I think this one of the real strengths of the conversation.
So Will, you've just dropped out. I don't know why. Yeah, that's it. I think you've moved or something. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just saying that actually one of the strengths that came out of the conversations that we've had across the whole of the county over the last kind of 12 months, 24 months, as we've been building the detailed business case that we brought to executive last September, is around the untapped opportunities of working with different partners in a way that kind of just puts the past behind us in terms of how those relationships have worked or indeed have not worked. I think there are some absolutely prime examples. Discover Stamford is one. Grantham absolutely is another. We've actually just recently reached back out to Grantham because they've actually had a change of the chair of the trust down there. So we want to make sure that we maintain our connections with them because, as Councillor Worth says, there's absolutely no point in us having collections sitting in the basement of a building in Lincoln when they tell the story of Lincolnshire. And I think the fact that we are now talking in terms of Greater Lincoln just absolutely blows open the doors on the possibilities, because for the first time, certainly in my nearly 20 years of working in this industry, we are talking about everything from the Humber down to the Wash. And the sheer wealth of storage that brings together is just kind of staggering, and absolutely something that can have national and international appeal, as well as very much also benefiting our local audiences as well. And Councillor Bradwell was quite right that in the past there's been this tendency for our focus to be too much Lincoln-centric. And what we want to do is work in every possible way. So it could be that involves getting those collections out to places like Grantham where they can be on display in the area that they tell the story of, and it could be working in different ways in the way that kind of Councillor Davey talked about this meshing with the tourism kind of sector deal that we're looking at the moment, but also looking at new partners. So looking at businesses, looking at where we can learn about kind of advances in technology in areas where the expertise isn't necessarily one that kind of historically sat within our team.
Yes, thank you. And I think you're right there that there is a fantastic opportunity because the heritage, like many historic counties of this country, there is a fantastic long heritage which we need to actually show and display. I mean, I think it's not only just about what's in public hands, there's all those private collections, and you can just see a whole narrative building for what's on offer in Greater, and then you can start things can start moving around. And I know we hold stuff on behalf of lots of private and public organisations, and if we can get to a situation where they can be displayed more and moved around more, that would be interesting. I mean, in terms of what's your assessment of the future possibilities to get funding? Because obviously what we'd like to do is try and get some national and private funding, if you like. What's to actually do a lot of this stuff to really make transformation possible. So, well, in your opinion, I mean, what is the landscape at the moment for actually attracting substantial investment, assuming we can get a really powerful case together?
Thank you. Yes, I think in the short term, you're absolutely right. A lot of the pots that have been developed in recent years, like the Cultural Development Fund, which was looking at putting £90 million into the industry. In the short term, they've been kind of reconfigured to help kind of services and areas and trusts that are in dire need because of the COVID impact. I think once we get beyond that situation, which we will, and I'm very pleased to say that actually our engagement with audiences during and post lockdown has been significantly ahead of the national average. But once we get beyond that, one of the things that's changed in the last kind of 5 years with regards to going for those large pots of external funding is that funders want to see partnership working. They want to see what that project, what that development does within a wider strategic context. So gone are the days of us saying, we want to redevelop this site, we want to build a new site. Funders are going to say, well, that's brilliant, but how does that fit in with an overarching narrative for the whole area? And what partners will you be working with to ensure that actually you maximise the return on the kind of funding you're asking for? So I think one of the real strengths of this vision is that it very much plays into the kind of the language and the outputs that these funders are looking for.
And I think there is I think what people are expecting and anticipating, both as funders and indeed visitors, has changed quite a lot over the last 10 years, it's fair to say. And you go to other areas where there are some really exciting and imaginative offers out there. And, you know, ours has been pretty static for a long time, apart from the castle, of course, which has been a great success. And I think that's part of the opportunity and challenge, I think, which we have.
Absolutely. I think it's become much more about experiences. It's no longer such a kind of static one-way interaction between stories and visitors. People are looking for more. The world has moved on. This doesn't necessarily mean that they're just looking for more digital kind of interactions, but they're looking for something that really brings heritage and culture to life. So I think people's expectations have changed. And I think what we did do with Lincoln Castle Reveal is really play into that, and we've absolutely seen the success of that since. And we've been kind of following that same kind of track with some of the exhibitions that we've been putting on at the Collection Museum and some of the other events that we've started, like the Christmas at Lincoln Castle. And I think it's really appealing to those audiences, whether they're kind of our local community audiences or attracting people from outside of the county.
Councillor Davies, have you hands still up? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Just to come back on that point, and it's valid. I think having a young family, I've experienced of a lot of kind of regional and national kind of heritage destinations, and there is a real mix. And I think there are some that have gone too far down the kind of the Disney approach. And I have to say, the London museums we went to the summer before last, as it were, pre-lockdown, I was particularly disappointed by the Natural History Museum, having remembered it, and I know we don't have anything like that in Lincolnshire, but having remembered it as being somewhere quite exciting with a lot of stuff, it had gone down the experience route so far, there was so little things to see, it was quite disappointing. So I would ask that we don't strike at the balance too much and end up with it all being pretty pictures, and like you say, well, you've highlighted it, too much digital in the absence of let's see stuff. The Battle Bosworth Centre is brilliant in as much as it kind of coincides the being able to go out and see the battlefield, but with the same time there's some good digital interpretation, but you can also get really close up to stuff and understand it, and that's I think is the approach. But there's so much here. I mean, the opportunities from the Humber to the Wash are vast, so I'm really pleased to see it.
Absolutely, I think that's. I must go. I haven't been to the Bosworth site. That's obviously something to do. But I think you're right. There is a balance between you've got. I mean, there's a balance between information and entertainment, isn't there? It's an interesting one. In terms of obviously, we know the high street now in the towns is going to change quite quickly and radically. Obviously, this could be part of that as well in terms of people coming to a town or whatever, and it will be all part of the experience. For the whole day, so to speak, because people still need to go out and do things. Nobody wants to sit at home just doing digital stuff all day long. Well, not most people don't, do they? But most of us would like to get out and about and get some exercise and some different experiences. So I think it's a big opportunity, and that's why I'm very grateful for Nick for bringing this forward and all the work that's being done. And hopefully we'll get partners together to share this with us. And at the moment, I think we've had a pretty good response from it across the piece, I believe. William.
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, we've been quite limited in the kind of the proactive engagement with the vision before bringing it before the committee today. But I've spoken to a number of different stakeholders and just individuals, members of our community, who have seen the papers, which obviously went to scrutiny last week as well. And to a person, that very excited. I think that they really embrace that this is a bold vision, and I think they absolutely embrace that it's not about one building, it's not about one store, it's not about one part of the county, and that it's about the whole of the county, and having that kind of focus and the opportunity to kind of build on the super site model and the cultural enterprise we spoke about last year, with a view to potentially building another super site in a more central location in the county that actually can be reached very easily by people visiting the coast and by people that live at every corner of the county as well.
Okay, unless anybody else has got anything to contribute, I will now just pause for a moment. Thank you. So we'll now move to the vote. So as the normal procedure, if anybody who is not a member of the executive could switch off their video, please. So hopefully we'll just be left with members of the executive on the screen who can then vote. Right. Brilliant. Yes, everybody's there. So all those in favour of the recommendation, which is on page 12, which basically we support this vision. Everybody please show. Put your hands up, please. Okay, I've got 8 hands, including mine. Thank you very much. That is agreed. Thank you. Brilliant. Okay, then we'll move on to the next item, which is the transformation programme overview. And this is basically about looking at in terms of how we can transform the way we do business at the County Council, especially in the light of the lessons learned from the new ways of working with coronavirus. So it's going to be a long-term programme, but this is an update on the progress we've been making on that. So I'll wait. I think we're wanting James Drury to just talk us through this, or is it going to be Andrew? James, do you want to come in first?
It's Andrew's going to go through the paper for us, Leader.
Right. Andrew.
Okay. Thank you. Good morning. So we've discussed the transformation programme in great detail throughout the year, and the report sets out the rationale for the programme, the governance, associated funding, and also an overview of the current projects and scope in order to today secure formal approval to proceed. So given the ongoing narrative so far, I wanted to set out what some of the work streams might mean in practice, and try and help bring them to life so that you're assured as to how they will benefit the council, our staff, and our residents and communities as a whole. A key aspect of that is to drive opportunities around our digitalisation, use of technology and software, as you've just set out around how we've responded within COVID, and what we've got available to use to make sure we get the most out of it and can design our services around the people that are using that technology. This will be driven through a number of projects within the programme, such as our business process review, the development of the corporate website, reviewing the customer service centre function and our broader customer engagement. We're currently identifying where some of the opportunities lie for that greater digitalisation and use of technology as part of the transformation programme, but really to try and understand the art of the possible with technology that we have available to us, so we're able to leverage as much from our investments as possible. A key aspect of this will be to break any dependence on previous inflexible or expensive technology that doesn't join up effectively in favour of more modular components and open data standards. There will be 4 key areas how we might look to that on our digital approach. The first being around how we engage with our citizens, how we can engage at scale to connect our residents, our communities, our businesses and visitors to our services. How we can generate greater means for councils to engage with communities as part of that. There are immediate opportunities available to us using some of the existing technology that we've got. So following the recent development of the website platform using the Jardoo technology, we could quickly assemble a Lincolnshire County Council app within that existing platform, linked to a customer relationship database, to be able to interact directly with some of our residents and keep our communities automatically updated on matters of interest, pushing out information based on their needs and preferences. So, for example, for parents in Lincolnshire who want to know information around health visiting or children's centres, going to school, transport or support and advice, that information can be automatically pushed out based on needs and preferences, or even visitors to the local area who might sign up and use the app and the system, where we can share information based on their needs and wants, which is also intelligent enough to link to where they are, what the weather might look like, and if it's going to look to forecast rain, pushing out information on some indoor activities and support to drive to use some of our heritage sites. A second key part is around how we look to empower our staff digitally, helping to share and shape what it means to be a digital employee in the future. Looking to proactively use systems and software to help increase staff productivity, reduce waste, enhance the mobility and collaboration for staff. And looking around opportunities to avoid unnecessary travel to meetings or appointments if it can be done and is appropriate to be done remotely. Really making the most out of the data available to us to help make informed decisions. The third area is around how we optimise some of our operations, and there's numerous opportunities for automation of some of our processes, reducing some of the duplication and times triplication of work and manual handoffs of information. Number of opportunities immediately around looking to move calls away from the CSC and having greater self-service using, for example, chatbot technology for those who prefer that route, whilst also keeping the physical call line available for those who still prefer that method. Automation also opens up a number of opportunities where there are clear business rules, for example, within our HR management policies, being able to ask a system a question, for example, around managing absence and whether or not staff would meet certain absence thresholds, saving time for managers having to look up the information or time of contacting a HR advisor, where based on clear business rules, we can provide that information in an instant. A number of these opportunities will need consideration and prioritisation as we go forward. And the fourth area of digitally is really around how we can really take the opportunity to transform some of our services and how we use our vast quantities of data and the Internet of Things that are out there and to put it into practice. I know in some other authorities around looking around opportunities of putting sensors into our roads, which can have multiple applications, such as identifying, for example, temperatures, which could help inform which roads need gritting, saving time and cost. And also aware of systems using our existing platforms who have brought about automatic pothole detection, using scanners on vehicles that can automatically identify the size and the depth of a pothole. So we're able to advise our residents before they're telling us around some of those defects. We can respond to them quickly. And that can also provide information around when roads were repaired, how long it lasted, how it performed, so we can manage that. And that same technology can have multiple applications. For example, if we were to work closely with our districts, displaying that sort of technology on our waste lorries, which go down every road across all the county, and can pick up issues around potholes, where fire hydrants should be for the fire service, identifying any fly tipping or graffiti for districts. So our plan from digitally is around to pull this information together. We're keen to look to engage members as part of this work, and then hope to help that shape and inform what our digital strategy might be, and and take that back to CLT and executive to agree what our priority areas of focus are moving forward. And that might be a blend of greater engagement with our communities, driving efficient working practices, and greater optimisation for service transformation. But the transformation programme is beyond just digital and technology and has a focus on operational improvements also, working within adult care and demand management, reviewing the whole system from the website, reablement services, direct payments, wellbeing, into residential and nursing services, understanding what the flow is across the whole system and where some of those resources should be targeted for greatest impact. Also working closely within children's services on high needs, and looking to develop and implement the inclusive ambition to reduce the pressure on our high needs spending and see that gradual reduction in high needs spend within Lincolnshire, taking the more early intervention without the need for a referral or EHC plan, reducing some of the pressure on those independent sector placements. And within our LAC review, we have an outstanding children's services system, but there's more we can do to continue those excellent outcomes for children and families, looking around opportunities to reduce the need for statutory intervention in families' lives, and providing the right support at the right time. So the whole, there's around 20 projects in total within the programme that are set out within the report today, and hopefully bringing all these into the programme will ensure that the delivery of those is monitored, is tracked appropriately, to ensure it's completed, and provides the assurance of how projects are progressing, that we've got a good control over the costs, and making sure we're getting the council's receiving its return on investment, and ultimately ensuring benefits have been realised, and if not, understanding why not. And ultimately being prepared to stop a project if we feel it no longer meets our objective. That concludes my overview. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Certainly a very comprehensive report. I think you've got everything in there, so hopefully there's no gaps. Councillor Parker, it obviously went to overview and scrutiny where you did. I know you had a reasonable conversation on it. Thank you. So scrutiny
yes,
comments, please.
Certainly. Last Thursday, we discussed the paper. I think it's right that the paper is headed Transformation Programme Overview, because we were interested in some of the details. We gave support to it, and there's a number of points that I want to make. The paper was circulated of the comments made by Overview and Scrutiny Management Board to the Executive. The first one was the involvement of Overview and Scrutiny committees. One of the things that stood out was that the paper acknowledged that costs and savings are unable to be accurately determined at this early point of the project's initiation. So we've committed ourselves in a sense to £10.79 million in spending, but we need as soon as possible to know what tangible benefits the people of Lincolnshire can expect for that money. And that seems to be an important starting point. So as we've asked for regular reports back to Overview and Scrutiny Management Board and to scrutiny committees, so that we can involve members, not on the Executive, to make a contribution about evaluating the costs and benefits as these come forward. That's the first point. The second point was the involvement of I'm going to call it grassroots councillors, which in some way involves all 70 of us, that each councillor is a source of intelligence on how county council services are being delivered in their particular division, and consideration should be given to how we can make use of that intelligence in order to benefit the transformation programme. And I think that it would be a good idea, and we'll probably take it forward, that myself and Councillor Wotton, the Vice Chair of the Overview and Scrutiny Management Board, would meet with lead officers to discuss how we can engage councillors in the process. And the third point is, it seems that some of the objectives and deliverables are service specific, and we wanted some clarification at some point about whether specific objectives were localised to service areas rather than being across the board. And it seems as though there was an opportunity there. For example, technology is highly appropriate, and Andrew has made a number of very good points about how we can enable technology, but it's not applicable always in every situation, and it has to be customer or person specific to the particular issue that's being discussed. So a welcome to the transformation programme, and just to recap very briefly, we'd like to know as soon as possible the costs and benefits. We want to see the involved councillors and some clarification about whether or not some of these projects are going to apply across the board or specifically. But as I said at the beginning, the report was welcomed by the OSMB and we agreed to support it.
Thank you very much. Yes, I think there's certainly valid points. I don't disagree with anything that's you've just said, or indeed the comments from scrutiny. Councillor Woolley, I think is indicating.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, it's an absolute great starter for 10, and I indeed welcome it. However, I'm going to touch on a point that Councillor Parker's actually raised, and I see in the scrutiny comments that on the one hand, we seem to be promoting this one council, so I would suggest this one family, and yet you have to get to about page 41 before there's ever a mention of including councillors in that. And it just feels a little bit odd that on the one hand, if you say, again, for example, one of the bullet points on page 32, that we're ensuring a two-way process between staff and our residents, well, why isn't it a three-way process between our staff, our residents and our councillors? If we're saying one council and we should include our councillors as part of the staffing side of things, then we have pages quite a lot around the importance of staff surveys, staff satisfaction surveys. I do not see anywhere a bullet point mentioning councillor satisfaction surveys. So I think we just need to have in our right minds, are we a team or are we just bits of as and when it suits? So I would much prefer us to be that one cohesive team, I have to say. Thank you.
I think Debbie Barnes wants to come in, I think. Is that correct?
Thank you very much, Leader. Yes, if the paper doesn't portray that, Councillor Woolley, then we need to address that, because absolutely working with our councillors, with our executive, is absolutely fundamental for the delivery and the steer around this programme. Absolutely everything that we need to do needs to be led and worked in partnership with councillors, and if that hasn't been portrayed in the paper, then I apologise, and we'll make sure that it does.
I've got Andrew to come back, but I think is there anybody else? I've got some, Cheryl, is there anybody apart from Andrew who wants to come back? I've got Richard. Councillor Davies first, thank you.
Thank you. It's fair to say I have some concerns about this. Not only that, I feel that the paper exhorts spending a huge amount of money with, candidly, not a huge amount of justification in terms of potential benefits or even a base 0.0 analysis. I have raised this with Andrew outside the meeting, and I think we agreed to disagree. The reality is, just because we can do things in this space, it doesn't mean we should. And for example, I will give you an example. Andrew, during his informative introduction, talked about automatically scanning the roads. The problem is with things like this, and it's an area that I happen to know, but I'm sure it applies elsewhere, is while that seems like a good idea, I can assure you it's not unless we're in a position to rapidly increase the amount of money we spend in road maintenance. In short, because it renders our Section 58 defence inoperable, and every potter would become responsible for instantly. So the problem with this approach is, and we see it across local government and the private sector, is yes, we can do all this fancy stuff, but the question is, should we? And I'm afraid for me, there isn't enough justification across these work streams in here that these potential projects are going to generate the sufficient return to justify this level of expenditure.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Bradwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a pretty good report and there's all the work streams there, but for me it's timelines. We can have a long list and maybe you're not there yet, and there will be different projects that need props escalating to the top and some in the middle. So I would like to see timelines against those work streams to give us some idea about when we can expect that work to be concluded, because it's all right having a long list, but obviously we need to do the work. And if you're focusing on some smaller, more important things, then obviously they could make the biggest gains.
Thank you. If anybody else apart from Andrew? I think Councillor Woolley, have you come hand down, or is that a new hand? No.
Apologies, an old hand.
No, it's a thumbs up actually. So I don't know what that is. Okay, Andrew, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, thank you very much, Leader. So in response to, just to follow up on what Debbie says in response to Councillor Woolley, accept the point totally. We will update the detail behind that in response to showing councillors as that three-way equal party. I can assure you that following discussions we've had previously, have been back to our project leads and the service leads running each project to reiterate the need to ensure councillor engagement. It forms part of our standard template documentation within our project initiation documents, so we'll make sure that it is reflected up into the detail that's formed this report. But to give you that assurance, we've certainly made that request. Councillor Davies, thank you very much for your feedback. Certainly the discussions that I was given today were just around a range of potential opportunities, just to give, I suppose, some breadth and narrative around some of the possible things we could do. Not saying these are things we're going to do. There are definitely things around just trying to get a flavour of what the opportunities might be. Certainly before any of the funding identified goes through any significant form of investment, we would be looking to pull together detailed business cases and making sure it is the areas that the council overall wants to see us invest in. So that exploration that we're doing at the moment regarding our opportunities for business processes, how we engage with our communities, areas of potential transformation, will be brought together and come back to CLT and the executive to set out how they might meet our digital strategy moving forward and decide where we want to invest that funding and make sure we can be clear around the return on investment we would get as part of that. And thank you, Councillor Bradwell. Certainly, we're pulling together those timescales. I can happily share those outside of this meeting, and as part of any future reporting into scrutiny or the executive, we'll be able to have that available for you, detailing what the timeline is, where the dependencies are as well between some of those projects, because some will need to start after others have begun, identifying what the milestones are as well. So we'll take that back for further information. Today, I wanted to provide the overview, but certainly going forward, we'll get into the detail. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is anybody else wishing to speak? Thank you. I mean, I think there are valid. I mean, this is a very, very comprehensive report, but probably one could argue, and it is an overview, but it is I suppose it's a comprehensive overview. And I suppose really what I'm getting from this is that, yes, you know, you wouldn't disagree with anything in there per se, but there is an issue of timescale, and there's also an issue of what actually is going to be sort of worked on in the short term and in terms of timescales when things are going to be delivered. And I think the important point about not just involving councillors, but also what it means to the public out there, and whether they should really be, as councillors, we should be taking into account what it means for them. And I think there are some things that you could spend a lot of money on, and actually it's probably either counterproductive or actually not really worth the investment. So I think the next step is that we support this, but we do need to start seeing some more detail and some more serious looking at that. And I am concerned there are no, and it's probably not appropriate in this paper, but we do need some timescales, and we also need some decisions about what we are going to look at and what by definition we aren't. So I think there are okay as far as it goes, and I think hopefully we'll all support it, but I think there's quite a lot of work to be done after this to get to a stage where we A, are making progress, but B, are being quite selective about what we do. Okay, right, the recommendations there are on page 19, which is we support the scope of the transformation programme along with the approach recommended for running and manage the programme, and that you've had the feedback. And I think that is, we are supporting the scope in principle, but we're certainly not suggesting all that will be done or would agree to it. But that's not what you're proposing, is it, Andrew?
No, it's for the scope of it, and we'll certainly be bringing back where those areas, either to the executive or lead portfolio holders for any areas of those significant investment. But certainly the area around understanding that digitalisation will definitely come back to agree what we want to set out for our vision for the next 2 to 5 years linked in with that. Absolutely.
I think I've got another hand up. I'm not sure whose it is.
Councillor Green.
Yeah, Richard, thank you.
Sorry to ask this, Andrew, but when you say significant investment, what do you mean?
Well, I suppose in that sense, so from a project, if it was on an individual project basis, that would be around, I suppose, where we're identifying around investment in works, let's say like with the smarter working, investment in anything like a booking system or adaptations to the office environment and such. From an executive point of view, certainly in line with the Constitution and anything that would mean a key decision, but also anything in line with decisions in relation to thresholds, I suppose a financial threshold. So,
can you give me a value? What do we write on the cheque?
I suppose the figure that if I think to the figure that say goes to like the commissioning commercial board, anything that had an impact on from around 250,000 in total value and above would be linked into that. Into the same threshold as that. But in terms of our overall programme spending, we'd definitely be coming here for that, I suppose, where the priorities lie. I suppose, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm a bit nervous that we're going off and spending £250,000 on projects that we haven't formally agreed or haven't been agreed.
Yeah. I think that is dead right. There is because obviously we are there needs to be, and I think as Councillor Parker raised, and from a scrutiny perspective, and certainly from a decision-making process, there needs to be some clarity, because, for example, you could start spending, £50,000 here and there, and then find that it doesn't go anywhere. So I think there needs to be some clarity in terms of what's being decided, and it needs to go before, not necessarily the executive here, but needs to go through a clear route, so there is a clear understanding of what's being spent, and we are comfortable with the direction of travel in terms of spending. So that is currently not clear at the moment. So I just think we probably need to make sure that is made clear. Andrew McLean, oh sorry, Andrew, is Andrew Crookham with us today?
He is, Leader.
Is Councillor Parker
yes, Leader.
wanting to come in, Leader?
I'm not sure. Did you want to come in, Councillor Parker?
Very, very briefly, seriously.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thank you.
What is going to be the formal role of OSMB and the scrutiny committees? Because it seems to me that the next stage after this is a broad perspective which takes in highways, heritage, adults, children's transformation in terms of the way we do business. And that needs to have more detail, which we can then move forward from. But at the moment, it doesn't seem as though we have a plan as to what is the next step.
I agree. I think that's entirely right. So I've got one of the Andrews. I've got Andrew McLean back. We do need some clarity on, obviously we can agree this, but I think we do need to make sure that there is clarity in terms of the decision making, including scrutiny, of course. There's some clarity and the visibility of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose we can look to see to formally set that out. We've got the sounding board in the interim. So the response of the figures was around anything to come back to this group. Just to give you assurance, the levels of expenditure do go through an agreement with the relevant exec director sponsors for each project prior to any agreement. But certainly the figures that are identified within the report are those estimates at this time, but they are not necessarily that they've been signed off in advance for approval. So
I just wonder if we need to add to the recommendations that it needs to go back to the overview and scrutiny with some key decisions on this, or words to that effect. I think that would be reasonable, because then it is formally in the system then, and obviously once it goes to a formal committee, then obviously it does become formalised, and there's a clear reporting line. I'm avoiding saying which overview and scrutiny, but I think sooner rather than later we need to start making some decisions about what is appropriate to invest in and how much, and not leave it too long. So I think we need to go. So is everybody in the executive comfortable with that we actually put that in as well? I've got Andrew Crookham just putting his hand up now. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Leader. Yeah, you did say almost what I was going to say, actually. So you've covered some of that already. I don't think we're suggesting anywhere that we wouldn't be making decisions out with the normal decision-making process. So clearly, as Andrew said here, there's the executive process for those key decisions, but then we've also got the various levels of delegations with individual executive members that we'd probably seek to utilise where necessary, notwithstanding what you just said about approving the whole plan. But also as well, there's the subsequent monitoring thereof, as Councillor Davies has acknowledged. It's a significant sum. Would expect to incorporate that within the regular monitoring reports that you receive, the quarterly monitoring reports now. So both of which would go both through scrutiny and this committee also. So hopefully that provides some assurance to you all as part of those deliberations.
Yeah, I hear that, and I think that's correct. But I do think there are obviously delegations rightly down to officers for lower sums of money. And obviously what we don't want to get to is a situation where we're having committee meetings to decide small sums of money. But what we do need committee meetings for, or member oversight or formal oversight, is, as I've said, what are we actually going to invest in, and what exactly is the time scale of that? And there's no clarity on that. So I'm just, I hope an officer could help me with a form of words where we can just add on to the recommendation that there is a report back to scrutiny. So has somebody got any suggestions, please? Andrew, you're the expert. Can you suggest a form of words to make sure it the decisions on programmes and what we invest in. That would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Work with democratic service colleagues outside of this to pull that together to inform that.
Okay, well, we have to make a decision today. So I'm suggesting in general terms, and I'm not very happy that I've not got the exact words, that we actually, that future decisions on the programmes are, future decisions on the programmes are reported to the executive, and then obviously then on to the overview and scrutiny as well as the executive. I've got somebody's hand up. Is that Debbie?
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. So just as a suggestion, it was to say that a proposal would be that individual business cases prior to any investment would be subject to scrutiny and then executive or portfolio holder decision making in line with the Constitution.
I think that will, yes, that sounds reasonable. Is everybody comfortable with that? I think it covers it. I think we're all right there. I think we just have to use, we don't want to get clogged up with bureaucracy, but at the same time, we just need to get on that. And hopefully that will be a fairly soon overview and scrutiny and the rest. Okay.
Councillor Hill, could I just say one thing?
Yes, sir. Yes, Rob.
With the big picture, right? At the moment, we've got something that is going to be individual decisions are going to be subject to scrutiny. But it seems as though the next step is a plan from which, after that, the individual scrutiny committee oversee individual spending areas. It's the big picture that we haven't yet got in terms of which projects are going to go forward and which are going to fall out.
Yeah, I think you're right there. So it is more than just, it is the program, the details of the program. I think we need to add in about the details of the programme should go to overview and scrutiny through the democratic process. So you've got an oversight, and then we will then avoid just trying to go into look at little small sums of money. So just Debbie, I just probably want a slight amendment there in those lines.
We can include regular monitoring of the programme to overview and scrutiny.
Well, it's more than regular monitoring. It's more decisions about the big decisions about what we are going to really go for and invest in.
So add in the programme and individual business cases.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think we've got there. So and obviously we'll. So is that with that then? So with those additions to the recommendation is. Are we ready to go to the vote now before we go any further? Does anybody else wish to speak? No. So then if non-exec members could just switch off their video for the moment, please, and then we'll go to a vote. I think we've got everybody there. So to clarify then, that so the recommendation 1 stands, then the second recommendation, Debbie, will be?
Sorry, thank you very much. That the whole programme and business cases prior to any investment will progress through scrutiny and the decision-making processes in line with the Council's constitution.
Thank you. So thanks for that. So all those who agree then with that recommendation, please now vote. Any abstentions? Don't think so. I think we've all voted, so that has been agreed. But and then hopefully, I think certainly Councillor Parker needs to be looking for it on his agendas to make sure that we are starting to make progress. Thank you very much for that. So then I move finally, I think it is the final paper, which is the Smarter Working Programme update. Thank you. So who's going to talk to this then, please?
That'll be myself, Leader. So I'll take that forward on behalf of Karen Cassar. So unfortunately, Karen Cassar and Kevin Kendall are unable to be here for today's meeting. I've agreed to present the paper and take back any comments and actions on their behalf. And I also have Dave Pennington with me from Property Services to support with any accommodation-based question. So the report shared today shares the corporate leadership team's agreed vision and goals and objectives for smarter working moving forward. It also provides the executive with a summary of the data and analysis that has been undertaken so far on the Smarter Working Survey, which was sent out and available for all employees to complete throughout the summer, and includes an update on our emerging office accommodation and workspace strategy. Pages 52 through to 54 sets out in detail the 6 priority goals and how these plan to be achieved as part of the transformation project, and that will ensure that it will be governed appropriately in managing the achievement of these goals. Also identifying some of the interdependencies with other projects that I've spoken about previously within the transformation programme. So during July and August this year, a survey was carried out with staff which had over 2,600 responses, which was a fantastic response rate. And of those which responded, it identified that around 63% are currently completing all work from home, and a further 33% of employees are using a blended approach between working from home and some working from other locations, with just 4% indicating they're completing all of their work at work bases locations other than from home. Over 70% of those who are working from home indicated that they can do so effectively, with 64% saying they can effectively work from other locations too. At the time, many of us still experienced some IT issues, which has been constantly improving, and IT and Hmrc are continuing to seek to improve it. Page 56 sets out some of the stats regarding future working preferences, which identifies around 65% of those who are working from home all the time would continue to work from home most or all of the time, and 71% of those with that current blended approach would like to continue to have the option to work from home some or most of the time. Page 57 sets out some of the benefits and challenges of working from home. A large number of staff identifying that the reduced travel and the associated cost has been a key benefit, with technology issues still being a significant issue. That continues to be worked on and addressed, but in all cases isn't necessarily council related, and looking around how to support individuals' own home setup to help rectify some of those issues. Many of the other challenges identified are being looked at, and many of the matters which will be addressed through our managing workforce performance review. In order to be able to deliver the goals, our accommodation will need to be adjusted to help reflect this. The size of the remaining stake is being modelled on the basis that typically we would have around staff spending 2 or 3 days per week working in the office, as we look to a more of a blended approach of how we work, and having capacity distributed across the whole county as far as existing size and locations would allow. The council has just over 37 pure office buildings and other office spaces in depots, for example. It's estimated that around 70% of all space would not be allocated to individuals in the future, but would consist of multi-purpose bookable spaces, including opportunities for informal meetings, a dedicated leadership zone, formal meetings of a range of sizes, including hybrid arrangements, having the right technology so that people in the office can have a meeting with people working from home at the same time, and also looking around that team, group, project, innovation space. A key component will be developing and implementing a space booking system, and options of this are currently being considered. Phase 1 will require existing space to be depersonalised, and the survey has gone out this week to determine which staff and roles will need to be in our accommodation as part of the here and now response, delivering services during the pandemic. The future smarter working design principles will be communicated with managers across the council, which will turn enable help to the project to develop its operational delivery plan, which will then outline specific timelines and costs, including cost benefits for the programme. That concludes my overview. Welcome to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Parker, obviously I thought we had a very interesting debate at heavier scrutiny, but would you like to just update us on what was decided?
As you know, the paper has been circulated from about our comments from last week's meeting. The key points that I want to stress are the importance of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, as it were, and that is to continue to make sure that team working and informal office contacts are maintained. Most of the people that spoke talked about hybrid arrangements, should be able to do that. And it is important that we recognise that these meetings, team working, idea sharing, don't always involve management and it's the opportunity for staff to get together and talk about a whole variety of things. And that's the bond that strengthens teams. So we mustn't lose sight of the fact that working at home is an individualistic act, but staff have got to have the opportunity of being social animals as well, through continuing team building. The opposite side of that, negative side of working at home, is the isolation and social contact. And it's no surprise, is it, that from page 57 of the report, the survey's second in importance is the challenge of working from home for all sorts of reasons, and that we must be able to put in place and recognise that reducing isolation, enabling social contact and supporting people's well-being is a primary management task. I think the other point that is important is that we in local tend not to react quite as quickly in terms of delivering change. And as I read what business is doing, that there are plenty of good practices in other organisations that have moved very quickly into stabilising working from home. And it would seem an opportunity for us to cast our net quite wide to see what good practice we can pick up, not necessarily use, but if we think it fits our own experience, benefit from other organisations. We talked about this on Thursday, and as we know, the weekend brought a new change in the way that we're going to be operating. There has been discussion about whether or not the 4-week COVID lockdown is going to continue or not. So in a sense, we're operating in a changing environment, and the impacts of COVID-19 and the uncertainty can have an impact on, obviously, not just the wider population, but also our staff. And we wanted to stress that the Smarter Working programme is focused on the medium to long term, but we have to manage the short term at the same time. The blended approach is we took the view that, of course, one size doesn't fit all, and the needs of each service area have got to be looked at individually. And one of the things to conclude, it was really good to see that the corporate leadership team would act as a role model and early adopters of shared space working. So they're the points that we discussed and bring before the executive.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Parker. Any questions, comments? I suppose just I'd like to start with, obviously the vision, it looks great, again, but I suppose in terms of when is that going to translate into, obviously you'll have to come back presumably to, again, some formal decision making in terms of changes in policy, both, like in HR policies and also policies regarding office space. So what is the timescale we're looking at here? Somebody's banging. I don't know who that is. Jeremy,
I think that's me banging as well. Yes, thank you very much. So there is a number of different policies which will need to be updated, and there is also a need to make some contractual changes. The timeline in terms of when we're looking at implementation would be April. Just to confirm, obviously, that's not about staff returning to the offices post-COVID. This is about a smarter way of working. So just to separate those two pieces of work out, but we are planning for the first phase of smarter working to be implemented by April, but as I say, we do need to make those policy changes and consult on contractual changes as well.
Thank you. Councillor Bradwell, I think, wants to come in.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Well, I was just going to concur with what Rob was saying, because I do think staff do need to get together and work from home, but also come into the office. I do think that there is that working together and discussing what's happening in their areas is very important. I also think as well, because speaking to different staff members, especially staff who are on their own, probably live in small flat or small house, have said to me how difficult they have found working from home. really, really difficult. Their mental well-being hasn't been as good. So I do think, it does need to be that flexible environment. Some people will love working from home, but there's others who do need to come into the office because it does get them out of, somewhere where they live and don't really see anybody. So I'd like to see that flexibility still kept in there. And actually, if people want to come in, they should be allowed to come in, because, it is about us wanting the best for our staff. We do want our staff to be well and wanting to come to work. So I think, we should have those flexibilities.
Thank you. I think we do need, but of course there needs to be some boundaries so that managers, because on the one hand there might be people who say, well, there are people who say, I never want to go to the office ever again. And there are other people, like you described, who said, well, I'm struggling to get to the office. So I think, there needs to be some clarity, but within the clarity, some flexibility. But otherwise, it will be impossible to come up with something which actually makes managers be able to manage their staff in a sort of sensible way. Have I got anybody else who's got a hand up? That's the leader. Thank you, Barry. Your mute's on, Barry. There you go. You're off.
There's one agency, if you like, that hasn't yet been mentioned, and that's Hmrc. Who will undoubtedly be interested in monies that suddenly start being paid by way of, here's a contribution towards your new desk at home, all that kind of thing. Other things like your normal place of work, in the case of people driving from the base to a business meeting and then claim mileage. Where is the base? Is it home? Is it 50% of that because your time is split 50-50 between home and office, and so on and so on. And I think that the earlier you get to talking to the Hmrc, the better.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. There will, no doubt, there will be movable things will change. I'm sure you're right there. I've got Debbie Barnes, I think, and then I think it's somebody else as well. Debbie.
Thank you, Leader. So Andrew will come in on the tax issue around the equipment, but just to confirm that is one of the things that we are working with and will need to consult on, is the issue around whether or not staff would have split bases, and then the lesser rule would apply in terms of travel claims. So that will all be included in the policy review and in any contractual changes that we make. So just to assure you that we are working on that. And I think Andrew wanted to.
Andrew Crookham, I think, wants to come in. We've probably got any more detail.
Yes, thank you, Lily. So it's just to give an update to members that the Hmrc have applied a blanket rule for working at home allowances for the 2020-21 year of £6 a week tax relief. So we're just working through the implications of that. That was updated just a week ago. So we're just working through the implications of that to communicate to staff groups and how that can be managed and the like. But clearly, whether there's further implications further down as a result of COVID or anything else, naturally we'll be trying to keep on top of that as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Gerald?
Councillor Woolley.
Councillor Woolley, thank you.
Thank you, Leader. I suppose, Andrew, I just wanted to double check with you. You said it was a fantastic response rate of whatever it was, numbers wise, but how many staff do we have in the organisation in total? Because if I'm being quite honest, and now I'm making a comment, anything sort of less than, certainly in the low 90s, I would be disappointed with. My expectation would be that staff would automatically want to complete a survey that affects them. And I suppose whilst I'm at it, the other thing, and again, this is a comment, I would say if ever there was a warning to the organisation, I'm not suggesting from one moment I know how to sort it out, but when top of the list of reasons or difficulties for working from home is IT issues and technology issues, I think we really, really do need to take that in mind, because bearing in mind our last paper, when we're talking about all the things that we want to do, if the technology is not there, then we're not going to get very far.
Thank you, Andrew. Do you just want to respond to those?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that. So in terms of the number of staff is around 4,500. So although we've got just over 2,600 responses from a general county-wide for all staff engagement, that was a really good response rate based on previous responses, and also in the middle of summer as well, during July and August, when not all staff are around at that time. So the figure was, in terms of engagement with our HR department on previous response rate, was felt that was an excellent rate to have from 2,600 out of the 4,500 staff. In terms of the IT and technology, yeah, absolutely agree. In terms of what we've discussed previously in our ability to transform the services, IT remains an issue, but I think it's already much further on than when this engagement was carried out in the summer. So there's been even further work by our IT service and with Serco. So hopefully looking at that as a continuous improvement and aware of the implications of connectivity to deliver that. So it has been on the agenda, and John Wickens, our Assistant Director for IT, forms part of the Smarter Working Project Board and is constantly looking and reviewing on how we can continue that to improve that performance.
So, but my understanding is that all staff are able to connect remotely. That is correct, is it not?
Yeah, I think
who need to. Yeah. Obviously, if you're a frontline worker,
absolutely. Those who need to are able to, and working through where there are issues. And there's been issues in terms of the VPN at times, which Serco responded to. We've had outages linked to updates from Microsoft and such. So as they get worked through, and it's becoming more and more refined for that more stable connectivity going forward. I do know from some of the engagement we've had with staff, some issues are around people's home setup. So been liaising with John as part of how we communicate with staff, what we can do for them to help support that. So practical examples of just around Wi-Fi hotspots and things like that, or old phone lines that people don't know are in the property can have a massive interference. So just how we can start to communicate some of that as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further comments, please, on this paper? A progress, again, overview paper, but again, we've been assurance that new policies will be in place by April, so I think that's good. So the recommendations there are on page 51, which is we support the goals of CLT, but also note the outcome of the staff survey. So again, if non-exec members could remove themselves from the video, that would be great. And then we'll have a vote. Okay. All those in favour, please now show. Thank you. That is unanimous. So that is agreed. Thank you very much. So all it leaves me to do now is close the meeting. Thank you for your attendance, and have a good lockdown, I suppose. Thank you.
Thanks, Leader.